My name is Sarah Friedman, and I'll be presenting on the harmful effects of e-waste in Gayu, China, for GEH Assignment 1 for the cross-continental program. So here's the table of contents just for reference. The purpose of this presentation is to present a background, overview, and evidence for health effects that people have observed due to e-waste processing in Gayu, China. And another objective is to use graphs and tables to present this evidence and information. So over time, the percentage of households with key metrics of technology use, such as internet access, computer access, and internet usage has increased each by about 100%. So that's a huge increase in the number of people using technology products. And with that comes increased e-waste. So if you look at how much of a population is covered by legislation that protects the population from harmful e-waste effects, you see that places like Western Europe and Northern America have high population coverages, around 100%. However, places like Southeastern Asia, where Gayu, China, our focus of this presentation is, have markedly lower population coverage. And this is a problem because Gayu, before 2015, was the largest e-waste dump in the world. And people in Gayu largely worked without protective gear and in unsafe conditions to break down and recycle e-products. And there are a lot of health implications from this function that Gayu is performing. Okay, so one intermediate effect of e-waste in Gayu is people found high levels of heavy metals in rice in Gayu. This is especially important because Gayu actually used to farm rice, and that sort of impeded its ability to effectively sell rice. So people found high levels of arsenic, cadmium, copper, and lead in rice, all of which you really don't want in your rice because they contribute to really adverse health effects. So these high levels in rice could be contributing to some health effects that we'll talk about shortly. So one of the first observed health effects, which might be due to, in part, contamination of rice, is heavy metal contamination in pregnant women. So about 80% of children in Gayu were found to have blood lead levels over 10 micrograms per deciliter, which is the sort of limit of recommended exposure. Also, pregnant women in Gayu were 8.75 times more likely to have blood lead levels that were greater than or equal to the same threshold than pregnant women in a control group in a different province in China. Additionally, these same women were 1.4 times more likely to have blood cadmium levels greater than the recommended amount than that same control population. And finally, they were 1.63 times more likely to have high levels of chromium in their urine than pregnant women in Haojiang. So basically, in all measured outcomes for heavy metals in pregnant women, women in Gayu fared much, much worse than women in the control population. And this is likely due to heavy e-waste business and e-waste exposures in Gayu. So researchers have also looked at children's blood lead levels in Gayu and in a different population. And what they found is that children start off ages 1 to 4 with different levels of blood lead levels, with children in Gayu having higher blood lead levels than children in the control group. Additionally, as children get older, so as they move from the 1 to 4 bracket to the 4 to 5 bracket, in Gayu, their lead levels average tend to increase, and same with 5 to 6. So they're getting worse over time as blood accumulates as they age. Whereas in the control population, the line is basically flat, so the lead levels stay basically the same. So this data suggests that children in Gayu have higher initial exposure to lead, and it is reflected in their blood lead levels, and that over time, this lead exposure just gets worse and worse compared to control. So, in summary, e-waste in Guyana has had detrimental health effects on its population. So, this presentation's primary purpose was to educate viewers on the health effects of e-waste in Guyana, China, through the use of graphs and tables. So I hope I was able to achieve that aim. As background, electronic use device has increased and is thus generating more e-waste. And a lot of this e-waste ended up in Guyana, partially as a result of poor legislative coverage for Southeast Asia for e-waste protection. As a side note, happily in 2015, Guyana changed its legislation to allow for tighter regulation of the e-waste industry, so these effects are not as bad today as they were before 2015. But before 2015, rice in Guyana was contaminated with heavy metals. Heavy metals were found in pregnant women and children, and children's blood lead levels were markedly higher in Guyana than in a comparison control. And finally, here are my references. Thank you very much.